For those who live in Navy Yard, did you know you can order Walters online for pickup? Visit waltersdc.com, click on menus, and then push the order online button so it's ready when you get there to take back home with you.
Now a swing and a drive in the air to right field. This is deep. This is way back. This is going, and gone. Goodbye. Bang, zoom goes James Wood with a majestic, soaring, high fly ball home run that comes down in section 140 just to the left of the bullpen, and James Wood has himself another leadoff home run. That is his 5th this year and the 8th of his career. Bang! Zoom goes James Wood. He has tied this game. It's the Nationals 1 and the Mariners 1. Mikolas sets up extreme first base side of the rubber. Now he winds and delivers. A swing and a bouncing ball right side. Nunez to his right backhands. Plants throws low, but Garcia digs it out of the dirt for out number 3. So it's a 1-2-3 inning from Mikolas, who ties the Nationals franchise record with 7 innings in relief. And for him, 7 scoreless innings. Checks the runner at second. That's Jacob Young. And now the pitch. Swing and a line drive toward the gap in right center field. No one's catching this one. It's one up off the big wall in play. Rounding third, Young. He's coasting in to score as Victor Robles took the carom off the wall. Wood coasting into second with another screaming line drive for his 16th double of the year and his 46th run batted into the year. As the Nationals are pouring it on here in the bottom of the 8th inning at Nationals Park. It's now Washington 9 and Seattle 1.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He's at Nationals Park. So the Nats' longest winning streak in MLB's 2026 regular season is just 4 games, and yet the Nats now are 37 and 35. Why? Well, the Nats are winning series. They now are 9-2-1 over their last 12 series, with the 2 series losses being against the lowly Miami Marlins. The Nats are 8-1-1 over their last 10 series, if you want to focus in even tighter. A 10-1 win over the Seattle Mariners at Nationals Park on Sunday afternoon to win 2 out of 3 games in the series. The Nats now 37 and 35 with a run differential of plus 13, 14 and 21 at home versus 23 and 14 on the road. Good to have you with us. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Steve Solomon's at-large candidacy for Montgomery County Council. Visit voteSteveSolomon.com as early voting now is underway. And for more information on what Steve is up to, check out my conversation with him on this past Thursday's installment of my podcast, the Al Galdi Podcast, episode 1345. A tremendous performance by pitcher Miles Mikolas on Sunday afternoon. More on that shortly. But Mark, another high-level offensive showing by the Nats in this game. And, you know, the Nats have done such a good job this season of staving off losing streaks, staving off even what you might say are potential losing streaks, right? We had that disastrous 11-10 walk-off loss at the San Francisco Giants on Wednesday, followed by the 10-2 loss to the Mariners at Nationals Park on Friday night. And what do the Nats do? They respond to those 2 losses, back-to-back wins over Seattle, and by a combined score of 18-4. So much for that 2-game losing streak.
You know what this is a good sign of, I think, Al, of a team being good. You know, there have already been moments along the way that we thought to ourselves, well, maybe this is the beginning of the end, when they get swept by the Marlins, when they suffer that just awful loss in San Francisco a few days ago. And they're now showing that they can bounce back from it. It's becoming a real character trait of theirs to do that. And that's the sign of a good team. Now, it's not to say that it's not going to happen at some point. There's still more than half a season to go. So I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that they are always going to be able to bounce back when things start to get rough on them. But so far, 72 games in, they have done a remarkable job of not letting any bad thing fester for long, coming right back and just continuing to win series. 8 of their last 10 series, they've now won. They split another one. And as you said, the only one they lost was that sweep to the Marlins. And these are some good teams that they're playing. These are all the hallmarks, I think, of a good team. And at some point, we may have to acknowledge that the 2026 Nationals are a good team.
Well, the man who runs this podcast, Tim Shovers, he a few days ago, June 10th, conducted a poll on X. And we know that polls on X are super scientific and always accurate. But the question that was asked was, are the Nats good? A simple question. You could approach it in a variety of ways. The winning response was yes. There were 3 responses you could choose from. Yes, no, wait till July. The winning response was yes. Number 2 was wait till July. Number 3 was no. And I was thinking about how I would answer that question. And I think my answer would be, and maybe this is kind of a cop-out answer, but the Nats so far have been a good team. Now, will they continue to be a good team? I don't know. But when you have a winning record with a positive run differential, an elite level offense, improved starting pitching, that to me is a good team. You know, like if you're evaluating this in an objective manner without knowing the franchise, the recent history, the names of the players, the payroll, etc., that's a good team. The Nats right now, in terms of what they have done, are a good team. To what extent that's predictive for the rest of the season, I don't know. But in terms of what the team has done so far this season, I think the Nats have been a good team.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. I voted wait till July when I voted in his poll the other day, but that's kind of a cop-out itself. And, we keep saying, well, we got to see a little bit more. But we're almost to July. We're only 2 weeks away. We are 9 games away from the halfway point of the season. The further it goes, the more legitimate I think that it feels. And I think I'm going to feel confident saying this. This is not a bad team. If things would really, really have to fall apart, and not just in the record, but just in the way that they're playing and the way they're looking, for me to get to the end of the season and say, boy, that was a bad team. I think we're past that point. I think it's fair to say that this is, at the very least, a surprising team with the strong potential of being a good team. And more evidence of that after the first game of this series, when they lost handily to the Mariners, that run differential dropped back into the negative territory. Well, you just said they just bounced back, and in a big way. They didn't just win the next 2 games. They won convincingly the next 2 days, again, against a good Mariners team that is known for having a good pitching staff. I think the more they see opponents, the more other teams out there see of the Nationals, the more other teams are impressed with what they're doing. I heard that from people around the Mariners this weekend. It's hard not to look at this and think that this is going well. I don't know what that's going to end up meaning at game 162, but you couldn't have drawn this up much better for the first 72 games. I don't think anybody could reasonably have predicted both the record, but even more than that, how they've gotten to this record and what they've done to get to 37 and 35.
Well, the offense has been so good that right now you're looking at maybe the single most surprising aspect of any Nats team since the franchise came here in terms of how good this offense is. 10 more runs in this game on Sunday afternoon, 10 runs on 14 hits, which were 2 home runs, 5 doubles and 7 singles, 2 walks, 5 for 14 with runners in scoring position. The Nats again scored early in a game, a 1-run bottom of the first, a 5-run bottom of the fourth, a run in the bottom of the 7th, and 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th. And the Nats again got to a good pitcher. The Mariners starting pitcher was Emerson Hancock. He came into the game with an ERA of 2.74 over 13 games, all starts in this regular season. He allowed 6 runs in 4 innings. The Nats were so impressive once again offensively against a good starting pitcher. Some aggressive batting in terms of attacking first pitches, second pitches, etc. Some big innings, like I said, over the first few innings of this game. And you saw the Nats do damage against a guy in Emerson Hancock who had been so good so far this season.
So this to me was really impressive. What they did in the 4th inning when they scored 5 runs, this is remarkable. I don't know if I've ever seen a rally quite like this. They sent 10 batters to the plate. Those 10 batters saw a combined 17 pitches. 7 of the last 8 batters who stepped to the plate put the first pitch in play. Now, if I said to you, how many runs do you think they scored with that kind of approach? You would normally say, oh, they must have made quick outs, move on to the next batter. No, they scored 5 runs. They had 5 consecutive batters reach while putting the first pitch in play. I don't think I've ever seen that before, but it's a credit to them. They knew coming in that Hancock was known for throwing strikes. He has a very low walk rate. And once they got through the lineup the first time, they realized, hey, he's throwing strike 1. It's mostly fastballs. Until he adjusts to that, let's go right after him. And they did, and it was bam, 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 bam. You couldn't even keep up with it, with how quickly they were getting hits and scoring runs. I thought it was a great sign, not just of their ability, which they obviously have, but of their ability within a game to make some adjustments, to see what's happening with the opposing pitcher, and then to implement that in such a positive way like this.
And James Wood capped a monster series for him. He was an starting DH and number one batter, got on base 4 times. He went 3 for 4 with a solo homer, an RBI double, a single, and a walk. Wood in the Nats 1-run first, a leadoff homer to right field to tie the game at 1, despite having been down in the count at 1.12. The homer going a projected 413 feet per Statcast. Wood in the Nats 3-run 8th, RBI double off the right center field warning track for a 9-1 Nats lead. You look at what Wood did in each game in this series. Game 1, solo homer and a single, and he had an outfield assist, went 2 for 4. Game 2, 1 for 4, single walk and a stolen base. And Wood in this game 3, on base 4 times, 3 for 4 with a solo homer, an RBI double, a single, and a walk. He, for the regular season, now is up to 20 home runs, now has an OPS of 972. That's comprised of a 414 on base percentage and a 558 slugging percentage. We talked the other day about him having this 400-500 season and how rare that is, but up to 20 home runs. You do the simple math on this, he has a shot at a 50 home run season. Like, that's not out of the question with the pace he's on. 20 homers over 72 games.
He could be going for 50 homers and 30 steals, by the way, which is some pretty elite company as well. There are so many things to talk about with him, and every stat you come up with makes him look better and better. At last check, he's second in the National League in OPS to only Shohei Ohtani. Not a bad place to be. And this might be my favorite one. He has now scored 13 more runs than any player in baseball. Now, leading off is a big part of that. Having a good lineup behind you is a big part of that. But you have to be able to get on base and run the base as well to do something like that. He is going to score a ton of runs before this season is over. Combine that with the power, the patience, the base running. He's putting it all together right now and putting together the kind of season that we've only seen in the past year from guys named Harper, Soto, and Rendon. I think those are the only ones I would put in that category. Now, again, more than half a season to go. We know how he tailed off last year, but this is better. What he's doing in the first half now is better than what he was doing last year. And there are increased reasons, I think, to believe that he can sustain, if not quite at this level, something not too far off from it.
And as we're recording this, he's number 1 in the majors in plate appearances, 336. Number 2 is the Orioles' Taylor Ward at 332. But this idea of batting Wood number 1, he has the most plate appearances of any player in the majors. It's not crazy to say Wood should be batting second or third. I'm not trying to say that, but like, you see the logic, the rationale behind him batting first. He's an elite hitter and he has the most plate appearances in the majors. That's ideal, and that's, by the way, is of course another function of the offense being so good. The Nats have so many big innings. The lineup turns around so many times that Wood keeps coming up to where he has 336 plate appearances, number 1 in the majors. I mean, you could not have scripted this any better from a Nats baseball ops standpoint in terms of what is happening with Wood in that number 1 spot.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what else. I mean, yes, he's coming up to bat more than anybody else and producing, of course, like that, scoring all those runs like I mentioned. And the argument for not having him hit leadoff would be, don't you want him to drive in more runs? Well, I'll tell you what, he's got 46 RBI now. That's a 103 RBI pace for the season. To drive in 100 from the leadoff spot is very difficult to do. You have to be doing what James Wood is doing right now to be on that kind of pace. So maybe they're leaving a few of those RBI on the table by having him lead off, but him getting on as much as he is, scoring as much as he is, and still hitting for power and still finding a way to drive in teammates who are usually batting at the bottom of the lineup, it's hard to argue with the way that Blake Butera has handled that situation.
Hello, Montgomery County, Maryland listeners of Nats Chat. This is for you. I'm Steve Solomon, candidate for Montgomery County Council at Large. You may remember me from my 20 years on local radio as Solly at the Team 980, where I worked with Nats Chat's own Al Galdi, Mark Zuckerman, and Tim Shovers. I myself am a podcaster now as well. I'm asking for your vote for Montgomery County Council at large. Over the last 10 years, I've gotten much more involved in local issues in Montgomery County. I'm an active member of my civic association, the County Civic Federation. I volunteer at nonprofits. I serve on the board of directors of the Montgomery County Sports Hall of Fame, the Sports Advisory Committee, and the Library Board. Montgomery County is a great place to live. We've got incredible parks, libraries, restaurants, businesses, and most of all, people. That's why I'm running, because I think we can do better, whether it's at economic development and bringing in more businesses, helping the small businesses that are already here by streamlining permitting and cutting the red tape on inspections, or growing our partnerships with our thousands of amazing nonprofits. Doing those things will give us more money to keep all the services and programs we love funded, like programs for our seniors, taking care of homeowners and renters, and funding our parks, libraries, and rec centers. Once again, this is Steve Solomon. I'm running for Montgomery County Council at large, and I'm asking for your vote. Early voting runs June 11th through June 18th. Election day is June 23rd. You can learn more about me or how to contact me at votestevesolomon.com.
Pitch swung on, hit in the air to right field, hit well. Sending Cruz back to the warning track, and he leaps, he makes the catch, bangs into the fence, and holds on for the out. Oh my! Another outstanding play by Cruz, navigating the wall of the warning track, and then leaping and making the catch before banging into the bullpen fence. Second day in a row, he's made an outstanding play going back yesterday in dead center. Today, going back into his left in right field.
Is it possible we look back on this series as the series in which Dylan Cruz truly got going? Dylan Cruz on Sunday afternoon as the Nats starting right fielder and number 3 batter, 1 for 5 with a double and an RBI ground out, and he made a standout defensive play. Cruz in the top of the first, a leaping catch on which he crashed into the outfield wall on a flyout by Julio Rodriguez. Such a good defensive moment for Cruz off the great catch that he made in Game 2 of this series. And Cruz in the Nats 5-run fourth, a leadoff double to left field. It was Dylan Cruz who ignited that Nats 5-run fourth. He had a terrific all-around game in Game 2 of this series, including scoring all the way from first base on the Jose Tena 2-out RBI single for an 8-3 Nats lead in the 3-run 7th on Saturday. There's the obvious caveat of needing to see more, but seeing Cruz contribute in each game of this series. Remember, Friday night, he hit that mammoth homer, albeit in garbage time, but still a 440-foot solo homer for the Nats in that 10-2 loss to the Mariners on Friday night. What do you think, Dylan Cruz? Could we look back on this series as the series in which Cruz truly got going?
We could. I don't want to go there yet because I feel like we've been fooled a couple of times before. I don't want to proclaim anything at this point, but what I did like was that he contributed in meaningful ways in all 3 of these games, and I think you're seeing that more and more with him. The production was great. I mean, he ripped that ball, the double in this game, 104 miles an hour over the left fielder's head. So another good swing. Drove in a run on a ground ball later in the game. And then now back-to-back days, great, almost identical catches slamming into the fence. Just one of them in center field, one of them in right field. And then I know you saw on Saturday the base running play to score from first on a single. It shows you he has the ability to impact the game in a lot of ways. And I asked Blake Butera before the game on Sunday what he's noticed about Cruz's ability to separate the different parts of his game. And he said that's been an especially impressive thing that he has noticed, that no matter what the production may be offensively, and even if he's frustrated by that part of it, he is still every day doing things to help them in the field and on the bases.
Everyone wants to see you hitting and having success at the plate, the ability he has to separate that and go play defense and not think about his hitting, and then also, be a heck of a base runner and give us a chance to get in scoring position and also score from first. Just he brings a lot to the table outside of just offense.
And he thinks that's kind of innate to him. That's the kind of player that he is. And that's what we had always heard about him coming out of LSU. Now, you want to see the production go along with it, of course, and we're starting to see signs of that. Even if he doesn't go on a real tear offensively, I do think what we're seeing now is how he can be a legitimate contributor to a good team in his ability to impact the game in a lot of different ways.
I think what we can say with Dylan Cruz is that the floor is high. Even if he doesn't become the franchise outfielder he was drafted to be, he does enough other things well to where he will be a useful player at the major league level. Now, you don't spend a number 2 overall pick on a guy to be a nice, useful player. You spend a number 2 overall pick on a guy to be a star player. So, that bar is high. That's still the bar that you want to see him get to. But at the very least, we know he can play defense. We know he can run the bases well. And, hopefully the offense does come around. Here's the other thing, too. We have seen over the years Nats outfielders who have trouble when it comes to the outfield wall, who shy away from the wall, get skittish when approaching the wall. This guy embraces the wall. I mean, this guy over these last 2 games is bring it on, man. And he's made these 2 really impressive catches in crashing into the wall.
We're going to see one of those guys who used to be afraid of the wall on Monday. Lane Thomas, now a member of the Kansas City Royals, is going to be here. Nothing against Lane, who did a lot of good things for this team, but hit a ball to the wall with him tracking back on it, and you did not like usually what that result was going to be. Cruz is fearless out there, and it kind of exemplifies the way he plays the game, the base running, the defense. I know this sounds like not a big thing, or like I'm making a bigger thing out of something that shouldn't, but when you watch him every day, all those ground balls that he hits, he runs hard down the line every single time, and he comes close to beating some of those routine grounders out. And for a guy who may have an OPS that starts with a 5, I do think that's a good sign, is that he cares to that extent that he's not giving up even when things haven't been going his way. He's going to play the game hard no matter what. I think he does deserve some credit for that.
And what'd you think about him batting third in this game? That was interesting. Dylan Cruz in the number 3 spot.
Well, yeah, I think there were some matchup things there. I think it was maybe a sign from Blake Butera of acknowledging that the process has been better, even if the results haven't been better. And maybe hitting in front of CJ Abrams would present him some better opportunities. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. We'll see what happens on Monday. But you had Cruz batting third and Keibert Ruiz batting 5th. Those are not spots we're used to seeing them, at least this year under this administration.
Well, now that Keibert Ruiz is Pete Carlton Fisk, I think anything's possible with where this guy bats. Ruiz, as the Nats starting catcher and number 5 batter, 3 for 4 with a solo homer, an RBI single, and another single. His slugging percentage for this regular season now at .507. Unbelievable, the numbers that this guy has gotten to with the recent surge. Jacob Young, he is the Nats starting center fielder and number 9 batter, 2 for 4, RBI double, and another double. Did commit a fielding error. Dalen Lyle, he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 6 batter, 1 for 4 with an RBI double. So much to like with the Nats offense in this game and over the course of the final 2 games in this series.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Here's the pitch. Fastball's in there. Strike 3 called at 98 miles an hour. And a Curly W and a series win over the Mariners are in the books. Clayton Beeter with a quick 1-2-3 ninth inning. The Nationals with a 5-run third broke it open. And Miles Mikolas tied the franchise record for 7 innings in relief, 7 shutout innings, turning this into a victory for him here this afternoon. As the Nationals are on the field to celebrate, a Curly W in the books. In double digits, the final score of the Nationals 10, the Seattle Mariners 1.
So the Nats, for this win over the Mariners on Sunday afternoon, went with an opener, a relief pitcher, PJ Poulin. He allowed 1 run in 1 inning. Top of the first, gave up a leadoff swinging bunt single by Cole Young to the right side of the infield and gave up a 1-out opposite field double by Josh Naylor to the left center field gap for a 1-0 Mariners lead. And also on the play was a fielding error by center fielder Jacob Young, who bobbled the ball and trying to corral it for a throw. But then came starting pitcher Miles Mikolas into the game as the Nats bulk pitcher, and Mikolas, in a lot of ways, became the story of the game. He was outstanding. 7 scoreless innings, 3 strikeouts, no walks. He gave up just 3 hits, all of which were singles. He threw a lot of strikes, 83 pitches, 60 strikes, just 23 balls. And also with Mikolas, was the velocity being superb. Second time in recent outings that we note this. Mikolas per StatCast in this, his age 37 season, had an average four-seam fastball velocity of 94.9 miles per hour. And so you look at Mikolas now. He, through April, had an ERA of 8.23 over 7 games, including 4 starts. He, since the start of May, has an ERA of 3.32 over 8 games, including 2 starts. The turnaround of Miles Mikolas has been tremendous. I thought he was really good with you guys in terms of his post-game session with reporters on Sunday afternoon. Some really interesting things about why he's doing better, how open he has been to trying new things given his struggles over the previous 3 seasons. And man, how do you argue with the recent results? He has become a reliable, dependable pitcher for this team.
I've said it before, but I really think this bears repeating. What Mikolas and Zach Littell have done since April may be as responsible for the Nats' record and sustained success they've had now than anything else, because those were 2 pencil them in as losses when they took the mound. And right now, it may not be pencil them in as wins, but you know they're at least going to give you a chance, if not thrive, in those spots. And what Mikolas, and really break it down for us to help us understand what he's been doing. There are some changes on the mound, some mechanics changes that involved spreading his legs out a little bit, having a wider base, emphasizing his lower half a little bit more, not kind of falling out in front. And he talked about, he just didn't feel like, even though he felt healthy, he was not throwing the ball with as much zip as he thought he should have. And he didn't know if that was just age or what that was, and working on some mechanical changes.
Trying to stay in my backside a little bit better, not pushing out from the mound and kind of losing my center, just letting everything work around my head and be a little bit more balanced and just kind of letting it rip.
Changing his workout routine in the weight room, where he's lifting weights less often in between starts, but paying more attention to it and emphasizing some things. It's allowed him to be fresher on the days that he takes the mound. That's leading to that better velocity. He understands what he's trying to be as a pitcher. And then, as you said, he has been fully open to whatever the Nats want to do with him. And that often includes the opener, pitching in front of him in the first inning. And at least until this game, it typically included him getting pulled, at 50, 60 pitches, no matter how well he was doing. And so I was fascinated in this one to see if Blake Butera would do that again or if he would let him go. And he had Mitchell Parker warming at one point. I think it was the 7th inning. But Mikolas was on cruise control. The team had a big lead. There was no reason to mess around with that. And so Mikolas was allowed to keep pitching, and he ends up going 7 scoreless on 83 pitches, and arguably could have come back for the 9th inning if they wanted to do that.
It is stunning what Miles Mikolas is doing off how bad he looked early in the year and how bad he had been in recent years. And that was part of the conversation we were having when he was struggling was, there's really not much upside here with a guy who has been so bad in recent seasons. And, we have seen with the Nats during these rebuilding years, them sign veterans who have struggled and those guys getting worse. There is no turnaround. You don't come to anticipate the turnaround. With this guy, there is a turnaround. It's another sign of that process. Mikolas, during that session with you guys, brought up the pitching coach Simon Matthews and the good work that Matthews has been doing with Miles Mikolas. Just remarkable how good he has been.
And the whole staff here has been great about, getting me kind of on their program, like what they see and what they envision for me. And after a couple down years, was more than ready to, listen to anything that they had to say. So, and everyone's been great.
The Nats in this game ended up using just one pitcher beyond PJ Poulin and Miles Mikolas. Clayton Beeter came into the game a perfect top of the 9th with 2 strikeouts. So a terrific ending to what ended up being a successful series, a series win for the Nats against a good team in Seattle. Now, Seattle is missing some key guys, including Cal Raleigh, so we should note that. But still, Seattle's having a good season. Nats take 2 out of 3 off getting routed in Game 1. And next up for the Nats is a 3-game series against the Kansas City Royals at Nationals Park. The Nats have listed the following starting pitchers as probables for the series. Game 1, Monday evening at 6:45, Andrew Alvarez. Game 2, Tuesday evening at 6:45, Foster Griffin. Game 3, Wednesday afternoon at 1:05, Zach Littell. Per Baseball Reference, 2 players were tied for number 4 in MLB in offensive WAR for this regular season as of games through Saturday. Those 2 players, Washington Nationals shortstop C.J. Abrams and Kansas City Royals shortstop Bobby Witt Jr. This could be a really fun matchup. Two of the best shortstops in the sport going head-to-head these next 3 days at Nationals Park.
Yeah, it's been a rough season, disappointing season for the Royals so far, a team that, after making the playoffs not long ago, you thought they had something going in the long run, and Bobby Witt was a huge part of that. As a team, they have not lived up to what they were hoping to be, but Bobby Witt remains really one of the best all-around young players in the game. And I remember a couple of years ago making the comparison to Abrams, that Witt was essentially 1 year ahead of him in his development and reaching the big leagues and having success. And then the Royals gave him a gargantuan contract very early on to stay there, and he signed it. And we wondered, would the Nats do something similar with C.J. Abrams? Would he still need to prove himself more? Obviously, they have not signed him to a deal. Obviously, he has not put together the full seasons that Witt has in recent years, certainly not on the defensive side as well. But it is a good opportunity to compare these two guys head to head. And if you're C.J. Abrams and you're his agency, you certainly want to find anything you can to favorably compare your client to Bobby Witt, because that's only going to help you, whether it's anytime soon or whether it's several years down the road. When you're negotiating a long-term deal for Abrams, you want people to say, yeah, he's just as good, if not better, than Bobby Witt, because he is going to get paid big time if that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Witt is the best shortstop in the sport, though. Like, I don't think there's any debate. You look at his last 3 seasons. I mean, he has been an MVP caliber player these last 3 years. Very few guys can say that. So it should be fun these next 3 games at Nationals Park. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Steve Solomon's at-large candidacy for Montgomery County Council. Visit VoteSteveSolomon.com as early voting now is underway. For more info on what Steve is up to, check out my chat with him on my podcast, the Al Galdi Podcast. Steve was on this past Thursday's show, episode 1345. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have t-shirts, Nats Chat Podcast t-shirts. We appreciate the support very much. You can order a shirt by going to our website, natschatpodcast.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Nationals have 11 hits and a 6-1 lead. The pitch, swing, and it's launched. Right center field and deep. Back on it, Canzone to the track, to the wall, and it's gone! Ruiz puts it over the big wall in right center, 4 rows in. His 3rd hit of the day, his 6th homer of the year. Nationals 7, Mariners 1. Big blast off the bat of Ruiz.